sheds that we have found, a couple dead heads that we sawed off out in South Dakota. And we're going to turn this into an Antler Chandelier. I'm pretty excited about it. We've had these sheds laying around for a while. Can't figure out what to do with them, so it should be a good use. Here's what we're dealing with. Got good sheds in here. These two are definitely our favorite. Got 6 on each side. This one's got a cool kicker in there. So a lot of beautiful antlers. I'm really excited to turn them into a trophy. My goal is to take these sheds and keep them as close to the same as they are, just in their natural shapes and unique characteristics, and form them into a nice round chandelier. Typically on chandelier, the antlers are going to kind of sit like this, and then the lights will come down. For this one, I'm going to flip it upside down so the tines will be pointed down and the light bulbs will be hanging down within the antlers. I'm excited about that. A little bit different design than what you typically see. Let's get these things shaped up into the shape of a chandelier that we like. So this is the shape we're going to go with. You kind of put the bigger antlers on the outside and then the smaller ones on the inside. And it's important to consider how we're going to connect each one's on the outside. But then on the inside, we need to kind of cross reinforce the outside to the inside. So that is something that I'm trying to keep in mind. I'm using these shorter ones for the inside. I think the connections here will be very strong, and that way we can get the angles to support the best possible way. When we go to connect these, we'll have to adjust a few things for sure, but it looks like it will be a strong design, and that's what we need, because the weight of these antlers is actually going to be pretty heavy. I would guess it's about 20-ish pounds. So when we connect the chains on the backside here to hold it up off the ceiling, we'll need a lot of structural integrity. And that's something to keep in mind as we progress here. I also have this pile of smaller antlers here. Let's see. This is my proudest find. Spike here. That was hard to find. And we're just going to keep those on hand to use as little links to reinforce if we need them throughout this process. Okay, before we begin drilling holes in any of the bigger antlers, I want to try on practicing on the smaller antlers first, because I haven't done this before, so it will be important to get an idea of how the antlers react to the screws and drilling. So my idea is to make a pilot hole with one of these bits here and then drive a screw in through that hole that we make. So we'll pick out some screws here and advance. I found this about 1.5 inch long screw. I'm not going to fret over what we use too much. I'm planning on sinking the screw in and then painting it wherever it's showing at the end or grinding off any extra. So yeah, it's about 1.5 inches. It's threaded all the way up, which I like to see. Just got a Phillips head on there. I think it'll do the trick. We'll give it a try here on one of these smaller antlers. Let's just try bringing these two together. Hole. Getting the vise real good. Yeah, it's about the size of the shaft on the screw there. just broke this bit off. That's no good. Well, we're gonna have to figure out a different option. Well, a few drill bits later and we got through this one. We had to end up making a second hole since we broke off the bit in the first hole we were going for. So we're trying to connect these antlers like this. I want to hold them about how we want them to end up. So I get this angle right here. I'm drilling through the top one into the second one. Just as long as I get that hole started on that second one that it's going into, that should do the trick. So let's switch out bits here. Okay, we got this Phillips head on here. We got the screw. And man, it seems like it's going to be a little bit long. Let's see if we can find a smaller screw. Oh, they're pretty long. Well, to be honest, I cannot find any smaller screws, so we're going to try to just make this work. First, we're going to start off with the top antler. Boy, that is a tough stuff. Just broke off the screw in there. Yeah. Well, I think what we need to try to do is make this hole bigger. See if we can get that screw out of there. Pilot a bigger hole. Go from there. I think we found a combination that works. We got a little bigger drill bit here and another hole. We weren't able to get the initial screw out of there. It kind of just broke off. So we drilled a little bit bigger hole and I was able to just get the screw in and out of there. So let's put a pilot hole in the one we're going into. I'll just take the same hole as we had. New battery. Okay, new battery. Okay, that'll do. Sink this in. Goes in there pretty easy. And then, just like we want to. This is not an exact science, so I'm not too worried if it doesn't go in there perfectly, but we want to at least keep the frame somewhat the same. Is our goal. So yeah, like those two go together pretty good like that. Now let's try tightening this down, see how that goes. Boom! She broke off. Okay. Well, I'll have to figure out something different. I mean, those two stick together pretty good, just like that. So I honestly might end up just drilling the screw that much and then grinding this down. I mean, that ain't coming apart worth nothing. So that might be the option there. I want to try making it a little better, cleaner than that before we move on to messing with the antlers that we really love. Let's go. We found a winning combination. So I upped the pilot drill bit just a little bit from what we were using. So they're pretty similar, but just a little change made a big difference. So we're going to put that smaller one away. We drilled the pilot hole through as long as a screw. And we can see it came out the other side, but we can cover that up with paint pretty easily. That'll be alright. kind of putty that in. And the screw sink all the way down in. We can cover that head up with some paint. And now with these two screws, this thing is locked. I mean, that thing's rock hard. So that's exactly what we're going for. You know, now we just got to go do that to the nice antlers. Hopefully not screw it up, because these, like this screw that broke off, that ain't coming out. So it's kind of high stakes, but hopefully we can practice on these little ones, and so when we get to the big ones, we're ready to roll. We got the two big ones connected, so we could just put two screws in right at the base here, and put one from this direction, one from this direction. Just one screw held it decent, but man, when I put those two in there, now it wiggles a little bit, I suppose, but not much. It's pretty rock solid, so that'll hold. That's awesome. And the idea is that this will be hanging from the ceiling like this with the lights hanging down within. We'll go over the lighting system that we're going to use for this, but for right now we're just focusing on shaping up the antlers, and that looks good right there. That'll be a huge part of this chandelier, just these antlers right here. Man, those are beautiful. We're going to continue on with attaching these antlers all the way around the outside to begin with. And one thing I just wanted to point out is that, like, the beauty of working with antlers like this is not going to be symmetric. So that's going to take some effort to figure out how to put it all together, but it's just going to look beautiful at the end of it all. So don't worry if it seems unbalanced. It is going to be unbalanced. You're working with antlers, and nothing symmetric about them generally. So we'll just make this work, kind of work with what we got here, and it'll be beautiful at the end of it. When attaching these two antlers here, the screw I have been using was a little bit too short, so we're going to a little bit longer one I found in here. Maybe an extra 1/4 inch on there. I think that'll make just the difference enough to hold them tight together. Well, that should do it. Not really sucking down too good. I think we need to try a different drill bit. Drill bit head, that sucked on there pretty good. So we'll connect this next one over and keep working our way. I think you can see it's kind of fun working antlers like this. This one's been chewed on a little bit here, so maybe we'll try to cover that up. Kind of tuck it in. It's fun. Man, this has been a fun project so far. We got about half the outer circle together, and it's just awesome how the character of each antler impacts what we got going on here. You know, I had my overall plan laid out when I set the antlers out here, but as it's all just been coming together, the antlers have their own curves that you just have to go with. And so, like, over here, you can see that the chandelier is going to have a little curve in it, and that was not planned at all, but it's beautiful, you know. And over here, this little burr tucks in this gap and holds it really firm. It's just awesome how Each antler has little characteristics that make it just perfect for its fit. And that's the fun of working with antlers like this. It's no matter how creative you try to be, you're really limited to what the antlers you have are to work with. So you just gotta flow with what the antlers are. And man, this is turning out really good. I'm having a lot of fun. It's hard to not just crank it all out right now, but we'll try to do it in sections and enjoy them. This is where we're going to call it for day one. We got the outer ring connected. I think I'm going to put in a couple more screws to ensure that it's all really stable, but I mean, right now it feels like it'll stick together really good just with one screw in each, except for the big antlers. So feels pretty solid. I guess this is my first time doing it, flipping it over, so be careful. But yeah, there it is. So that's the idea. We're going to put the small antlers in the middle so it will hold strong across here, and then we'll dangle the lights down in between the tines. I like it, especially these big antlers there. And those are looking good. It's going smooth. Kind of want to get a look at it myself from that angle. Oh man, that's gonna look awesome. It's awesome, boys. Oh, that's gonna look mean. Let's go. I'm excited about this. I cannot wait to finish it up. Day 2 of work on the Antler Chandelier. The first day we got this outer ring made and it's just screwed together. I ordered some 2-part epoxy that we will use to glue up each of these joints, and that will add to the stability. You can see that the screw heads are showing, and we'll paint over those, and the ones like this here, it's got a little gap between the screw head and the antler there. We'll grind that off with a Dremel or something and even that out so it'll paint over good. Even like say this one where the screw head's pretty big, we'll go in there with the Dremel and get that cleaned up so it's not sticking out so much. But so far it's coming together really good. Today we're just going to put in about an hour of work or so, and our goal is to make a couple cross members using these smaller antlers that'll add to the structural integrity of this chandelier. We've got the cross beams done, and it's kind of nice. These smaller ones go together much more firmly than the big antlers because it's just less space between screws basically. So yeah, the center part is really solid. You can see there's a little bit of wiggle in these ends yet, these bigger antlers. So we're going to try to clean that up with this stack of little antlers that we have over here. There's also, if you look at it, it's pretty thick over here, but over here we have some open space, so we're going to try to kind of web that over, kind of make it look like this side over here with the antlers that we have left. Worked over the hour I was planning to, but it's kind of addicting for me working on this. This has been a lot of fun. So today what we did is we used all of the antlers. All of the antlers are now on this, even the one that I tested with. I used that over here, so we'll have some work to do covering up those holes. But the small antlers actually worked super good for making this thing sturdy. You can see here I used even the spike antler and kind of wrapped that around the inside here to beef up this support of those big antlers. So that plan worked out really well. I ended up working from the outside in. I mentioned that I was going to switch that after I had a screw break, but it definitely worked better to work from the outside in versus trying to work from the inside out. So that's what I did throughout here, and man, it is pretty sturdy right now. I mentioned I'm going to use the 2-part epoxy at each of the contact locations of the antlers, and that will help get rid of some of this wiggling here, but there is not a lot of wiggle after adding all the cross beams. So here's what we've got so far today. It's looking pretty full and sturdy. It is day 3 of this project, and I'm going to use this Dremel to take off the tops of the screws so they're not quite as visible. These screw heads ground down. That's the first one there. You can see I'm just getting it even with the antler best I can. And then I'll come over with some paint at the end of this and cover it up so it should blend in pretty good. You can see here I hit the antler a little bit. It's been difficult to just stay on the screw head hitting the antler, but again, with that paint, I think I'm going to be able to cover those little nicks up pretty good. The screw heads off, except one I couldn't really get at with the Dremel, so we're just going to leave that one, paint over it. It's kind of tucked in there, it'll be alright. And yeah, you can see that all these screw heads got cleaned up pretty good. They're pretty shiny now. We'll have to paint over them, but that'll be easy enough. I did burn up this Dremel. It's totally dead, so makes this project a little more expensive, but we did have another backup Dremel, so I used that to finish this part of the project up, and man, it's still going smoothly. I think the toughest part of this step was that I kept nicking the antlers. You look here closely, you can see like right around there, it's a little lighter colored. It's from me hitting it with the Dremel, which is kind of a bummer, and we'll try to cover that up best we can, but I figured those little nicks looked better than having a whole screw head sticking out. So it's a good day of progress, and I'm excited to make the next step, which is going to be gluing up each of these contact points of the antlers. We're going to put a little two-part epoxy in each of these contact points, and that's going to take the little wiggle that we got in here out and just reinforce in case one of the screws was to break or something. You still got that epoxy there holding these antlers together. So I'm excited for that step, but man, it's just going good. It's been a fun project. Let's keep her going. let's get day 4 started. So for today, we had a Amazon shipment come in. We got 2 paints. One is a white acrylic paint and one is a brown paint. Pretty cheap paints, but I think they're going to do the trick here. Then we just got a couple cheap paint brushes to go with it, and we're going to use this combination to cover up the tops of each of these screws that I ground down yesterday. We're going to mix up the white and brown in these paper plates here to get the right color for, I mean, like a place like this is going to be pretty white, but then when we get closer to the bases it's going to be pretty brown. So we'll be able to get the right mix wherever we're doing it at. And I'm excited for this part because it's going to make it look a lot more professional, I believe. Covering up each of these shiny screw heads. They stand out quite a bit. So through this process, we'll make the antlers look a lot more uniform and less like somebody stuck some screws through there. And so I'm excited to complete this process. Let's dig right in. We're just going to put some brown over here and some white over here. And then I just grabbed a little paintbrush. Seems like it'll do the trick. It's kind of got a square end on it. And we'll take this white and this brown and kind of mix them together. There we go. Getting closer to that bone kind of color. For this first one here, we're going to kind of start in a place that's a little more hidden. So hopefully, if I don't get it quite right, it'll be covered up. I don't expect to get it perfect first try, but we'll start at the base of this antler right here. Honestly, it ain't perfect, but it looks pretty good. I think we'll try covering up the nicks that we made with the Dremel there. Try adding a little more brown to that. There we go. Get a little more brown around the base there. Yeah, it's not perfect. I think I needed to mix a little more brown in there, but shiny screw head is covered up. I think that might do the trick. This acrylic paint here is pretty nice to work with. Where I left you guys, I wasn't too happy with how that color turned out. Paper towel and clean that off pretty good. So we'll another stab at it, try to add some more brown in there and see if we can get it right. Okay, round 2 with this guy. Going pretty much straight brown. There it is. That will do. It's going to stick out because it's not exactly the same. But once it dries, I think that will look pretty good. I'm actually going to come right down here and do a similar thing. Yeah, I mean, it stands out, but that's because we're putting paint on bone. It's different. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to go around and kind of just do that to the rest of these screw heads and hopefully getting this thing. Well, I'm working my way around and there's a couple things I wanted to share with you guys that I just learned. One of them, the first thing I learned was, okay, so let's say you're doing a screw at a base here where you got the color figured out for a base like that. Hit as many screw tops as you can that need that color. So let's say this is a perfect example, okay? So this is the first one I did. This one needed a color that was close to antler base color, okay? This one also needed that antler base color. So instead of having to mix up the paint for that a little later, I could just use that same paint mix for all of the bases and get them done more quickly and efficiently that way. So that was a good thing to learn. It's not going perfect, but it is going better. I also learned that this little brush here, so came in the pack. The pack's got, I don't know, yeah, it says 10 different brushes. And honestly, I would have just got one simple brush, but that pack of 10 came as like $4 or something like that. It was like the cheapest option. So I just got that. And actually the different brush sizes are really handy because like over here I just had really small spots to mark up, and having that small brush is perfect for that. But then, oh, where was it? Oh yeah, right in the middle here, there's a whole screw head I had to cover up, and for that it was much handier to have a bigger brush. So having an assortment size of brushes definitely is going to help out with this project. Let's keep chipping away. We've got all the screw heads covered up now. We're just waiting for them to dry up. It's interesting, when they dry up, we're getting more of this matte color, which blends in really good. Overall, I'm happy with how this went. I imagine it going a little better and looking more uniform. But just given my experience with this paint and basically my skills painting, we're not getting a perfect match, but good enough that it's going to look a lot better than when the screw heads are just sticking out. I'm really happy we did this step. One thing I did also learn was that when this dries, it goes like a little kind of like paler color. And so when you put a lot of white in there, that really comes out. So I went pretty heavy on the brown, and that seems to be blending in best. And when you step back and look at it, that brown doesn't stick out, but that bright white, like what this puddle is down here, that just stands out like a sore thumb. So if anything, just err on the side of dark and you'll be good. That's going to do it for day 4. We're going to just leave the paint back here in case we do need to touch anything more up. We probably won't have to. We'll call it good at that. But today was a good step forward, and it didn't take too long. It was probably about 45 minutes, and this step was done. So it's fun, and we'll take a look here at what the final product is looking like after day 4. Good afternoon. It is day 5, I believe, and we will be using this epoxy right here. Nothing complicated. You can get it at any Walmart or hardware store to strengthen the joints where the screws are at. So at each of the contact points where the screws are holding antlers together, we're going to put some epoxy in there and just strengthen that joint up. So that's what our goal is today. And then after that, we're going to use this rope to dangle the chandelier from the ceiling, just like it'll be mounted at the end, hopefully. And from there, we'll be able to add lighting. And man, this project is getting wrapped up. So excited to move forward today. Let's get this epoxy done and go from there. A small puddle of the epoxy. We got the hardening and the resin there. We'll mix them up. I think I'm actually going to use this little black piece provided. Mix that up. So we'll stir that up good. And then you got 5 minutes before it hardens. So I'll get as much done as I can and then make another small puddle and move forward. I'm going to be using this brush here to apply the epoxy. I think it will work well. So we're done with this epoxy. We ended up only using one of the bottles or syringes, I guess, of epoxy, and there's still some left in there. What I found when I was going around is that it was really hard to get the epoxy up in the crevice between the antlers, no matter what I used. So I used that paintbrush to do what I could and get the weakest points and really spend time in there stacking up epoxy. And it seemed to go pretty good. A couple times it dripped and I had to clean that up. I was able to use a knife and water and paper towel and get that. I also went back and painted the screw heads on the back of the chandelier. So far I just done it on this side, but then as I was moving it around trying to get epoxy, I noticed that there's some shiny screw heads on the back that could be seen from the ground if you had the right angle. So I covered those up with some brown paint quick, and that was slick. Now I'm going to suspend this from the ceiling and try to figure out, I have an idea of how the rope system is going to work. I'm going to use this rope here. It's 1/4 inch. I'm going to kind of double it up, and I decided to go with this little bit thinner rope because it'll make the antlers look bigger. If we had inch thick rope, it would make these antlers look pretty small. So this rope should be strong enough, and especially with doubling it up, it'll be plenty strong. I think it'll make the antlers stand out. So we're going to plan on attaching it somewhere over here, and over here, and then it'll make a kind of triangle coming up to a single support point. Let's get going on that. We got this antler chandelier set up kind of like how we want it when it goes up. And on the ceiling, we installed a chain that will maybe somewhat resemble how this is hung up. We'll have to see where it's hung up. But basically we'll need a big loop on the ceiling like that of some sort to draw the rope up to. And then down here we doubled up the rope, looped it around, put it here where it's holding two antlers together, adds to the strength of the structure. And now we have this other end coming down. We'll attach it to somewhere probably over here, and then we'll attach one over here. So those will be our 3 points of contact, and that's what we're working on now. And then we will raise this up off the table to about my shoulder height where I can work on it, get the lighting put together. It's nice to see hanging from the ceiling. So I decided not to cut the rope. What I'll probably end up doing is cutting it into 3 even pieces so we can connect them at each one of these spots, and that'll work good. But for this time, I just didn't want to cut this rope because once it's cut, I didn't want to have knots in the rope that look pretty messy for the final project. So this is what I did. I just ran the rope continuously. It's coming down to the edge of the table here and tied off. The rope setup works out super good for adjusting the antlers to be evened up. Like, let's say that opposite side is a little bit high. I can just kind of adjust the rope a little bit, the length of it, and even it all out. So that worked good. One thing I'd like to point out is that, see how we got like 4 ropes coming up here, and it kind of looks bulky in my opinion. what we're going to do is just go with this double rope. We might wrap it to make it look better, but it'll be just double rope. It won't be this 4. And we weren't able to do the double rope except on the first one since we didn't cut the rope for this step. So that's where we're at now. It's hanging good, looks steady. That epoxy really did an awesome job of taking the wiggle out of this, so that was nice. And you can see I connected it to kind of these interior smaller antlers. Seems like this one's connected on the big ones over here, and that'll stay that way. But by connecting it to the interior smaller antlers, there's less leverage there for the rope to be pulling on, so stronger that way. Seems to look good, holds good. So let's get a look at the underside of it, what it'll look like hanging from the ceiling. About eye level. Really, I would think that you're walking into somebody's man cave or whatever, kind of looking at it like that. So we can see it looks nice and full from that angle. Come over here, we can twist the antlers around and look at them too, but from there it's looking good. Take a wide view at this. Oh yeah, these turned out really good. That's standing out good. Twist it around. Looks like a pretty big gap there, but from underneath it looks pretty mean. And that's how we need to evaluate it. Oh yeah, sweet. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hole, I'd say, there, but otherwise it looks pretty full. I like it. Welcome back to the final day of the project. As you can see, things are looking a little bit different here. We've got the lighting rope here with the bulbs on the, or I guess the heads for the bulbs around there. We had a shipment come in from Amazon, and that had our light bulbs right here. You can go into detail in the description. I'll put a link of exactly what bulbs I used there, and a link to this lighting fixture. It's a rope lighting fixture with 1 meter rope cords, so that should be flexible for most high ceilings. As you can see in here, we aren't able to stretch it out all the way, as this ceiling is, probably about 8 feet or so. 9. It's 9 feet. So we're working with what we got here. It's going to be stretched out fully when it's put on a high ceiling, and these ropes, as we explained earlier, will be all looking like this one over here once they're cut to length for installation, final installation. So that's where we're at now. I skipped a little bit of filming last night because I was working with my dad on getting this wiring hooked up. The lighting fixture just came with a black and red wire coming out of there, so my dad helped me hook up this little plug-in so we can test it. And right now what I'm going to do is screw in the light bulbs, and then we can get a good look at how this Antler Chandelier is going to look before it's finally installed. To hold the rope lights in place, I'm planning on using epoxy, but for now I just kind of wired them on there, and when it's finally installed we can use this epoxy to put the light bulbs at the perfect angle, and exactly where we need them for the room that the chandelier is in, as you might want more lights on one side than the other depending where you're putting this. So the lighting fixture is really flexible. It can fit to pretty much any situation, which I really love about it, and it all goes together well. I was a little bit worried when I ordered the separate rope and the rope lighting fixture that they would show up as different colors and just wouldn't go together good, but actually it's looking pretty uniform all the way through, and I really like the way it looks. So I'm not going to dye this rope at all. I'm just going to leave the way it is and go with that. So let's get these bulbs in and take a look at what this final project is going to look like. Okay, we've got the bulbs all screwed in, and you can see the spacing isn't perfect, but it's good enough for this test. We're just going to take a look at how it all comes together here. You can see, I think when I do this final version, I would pull these light bulbs up. This one isn't coming up too easily. There we go. This one, I would pull these light bulbs up so they're right within the tines like that. I think that'll look best, but for now with the wire they're hanging down a little bit, and that's alright. We'll still get a good idea how this will look. Let's plug it in and take a look. Those light bulbs give off a nice warm light, which I'm happy with. Everything goes together well. I really like the looks of this.